Flamingo Books. Shining English Reader. Series 7. Chapter 19. The Homecoming Part 2. When they reached Calcutta, Fatak met his aunt for the first time. She was by no means pleased with this unnecessary addition to her family. She found her own 3 boys quite enough to manage without taking in anyone else. And to bring a village lad of 14 into their midst was terribly upsetting. Bishambar should really have thought twice before committing such an indiscretion. In this world there is no worse nuisance than a boy at the age of 14. He is neither ornamental nor useful. It is impossible to shower affection on him as on a smaller boy, and he is always getting in the way. If he talks with a childish lisp he is called a baby, and if in a grown-up way he is called impertinent. In fact, talk of any kind from him is resented. Then he is at the unattractive, growing age. He grows out of his clothes with indecent haste, his voice grows hoarse and breaks and quavers, his face grows suddenly angular and unsightly. It is easy to excuse the shortcomings of early childhood, but it is hard to tolerate even unavoidable lapses in a boy of 14. He becomes painfully self-conscious, and when he talks with elderly people he is either unduly forward or else so unduly shy that he appears ashamed of his own existence. Yet, it is at this age that in his heart of hearts, a young lad most craves recognition and love, and he becomes the devoted slave of anyone which shows him consideration. But none dare openly love him, for that would be regarded as undue indulgence and therefore bad for the boy. His own home is the only paradise that a boy of 14 can know. To live in a strange house with strange people is little short of torture, while it is the height of bliss to receive the kind looks of women and never to suffer their slights. It was anguish to Fatak to be an unwelcome guest in his aunt's house, constantly despised and slighted by this elderly woman. If she ever asked him to do anything for her, he would be so overjoyed that his joy would seem exaggerated, and then she would tell him not to be so stupid, but to get on with his lessons. This constant neglect gave Fatak a feeling of almost physical oppression. He wanted to go out into the open country and fill his lungs with fresh air. But there was no open country to go to. Surrounded on all sides by Calcutta houses and walls, he would dream night after night of his village home and long to be back there. He remembered the glorious meadow where he used to fly his kite all day long, the broad river banks where he would wander the livelong day singing and shouting for joy, the narrow brooks where he could dive and swim whenever he liked. He thought of the band of boy companions over whom he was despot, and, above all, thoughts of even that tyrant mother of his, who had such a prejudice against him, filled his mind day and night. A kind of physical love like that of animals, a longing to be in the presence of the loved one, a silent cry of the inmost heart for the mother, like the lowing of a calf in the twilight. This love, which was almost an animal instinct, stirred the heart of this shy, nervous, thin and ugly boy. No one could understand it, but it preyed upon his mind continually. There was no more backward boy in the whole school than Fatak. He gaped and remained silent when the teacher asked him a question. When other boys were out at play, he stood by the window and gazed at the roofs of the distant houses. And if by chance he espied children playing on the open terrace of a roof, his heart would ache with longing. One day he summoned up all his courage and asked his uncle, "Uncle, when can I go home?" His uncle answered, "Wait till the holidays come." But the holidays would not come till October, and there was still a long time to wait. One day Fatak lost his lesson book. Even with the help of books he had found it very difficult to prepare his lesson. But now, it became impossible. Day after day the teacher caned him unmercifully. He became so abjectly miserable that even his cousins were ashamed to own him. They began to jeer and insult him even more than the other boys did. At last he went to his aunt and told her that he had lost his books. With an expression of the greatest contempt she burst out, "You great, clumsy country lout! How can I afford to buy you new books 5 times a month, when have my own family to look after?" That night, on his way back from school, Fatak had a bad headache and a shivering fit. He felt that he was going to have an attack of malaria. His one great fear was that he might be a nuisance to his aunt. The next morning Fatak was nowhere to be seen. Search in the neighborhood proved futile. The rain had been pouring in torrents all night, and those who went out to look for the boy were drenched to the skin. At last Bishambar asked the police to help him. At nightfall a police van stopped at the door of the house. It was still raining and the streets were flooded. 2 constables carried Fatak out in their arms and placed him before Bishambar. He was wet through from head to foot, covered with mud, while his face and eyes were flushed with fever and his limbs were trembling. Bishambar carried him in his arms and took him inside the house. When his wife saw him she exclaimed, "What a heap of trouble this boy has given us. Hadn't you better send him home?" Fatak heard her words and sobbed aloud. "Uncle, I was just going home, but they dragged me back again." The fever rapidly increased, and throughout the night the boy was delirious. Bishambar brought in a doctor. Fatak opened his eyes, and looking up to the ceiling said vacantly, "Uncle, have the holidays come yet?" Bishambar wiped the tears from his eyes and took Fatak's thin burning hands in his own and sat by his side through the night. Again the boy began to mutter, till at last his voice rose almost to a shriek. "Mother," he cried, "don't beat me like that. Mother, I am telling the truth." The next day Fatak, for a short time became conscious. His eyes wandered around the room, as if he expected some last one to come. In disappointment, air of his head sank back on the pillow. With a deep sigh he turned his face to the wall. Bishambar read his thoughts, and bending down his head whispered, "Fatak, I have sent for your mother." The day dragged on. The doctor said in a troubled voice that the boy's condition was very critical. Fatak began to cry out, "By the mark! 3 fathoms! By the mark! 4 fathoms! By the mark!" Many times had he heard the sailors on the river steamers calling out the mark on the lead line. Now he was himself plumbing an unfathomable sea. Later in the day Fatak's mother burst into the room like a whirlwind, and rocking herself from side to side began to moan and cry. Bishambar tried to calm her, but she flung herself on the bed, and cried, "Fatak, my darling, my darling." Fatak stopped his restless movements for a moment. His hands ceased beating up and down. He said, "Eh?" The mother cried again, "Fatak, my darling, my darling." Very slowly Fatak's eyes wandered, but he could no longer see the people round his bed. At last he murmured, "Mother, the holidays have come.